Hello, friends, especially lady friends, although, of course, men who want to understand the women in their lives better are also welcome to watch this video. But as I have been experiencing the joys of perimenopause, I've been getting into a lot of conversations about creativity in the menstrual cycle lately, particularly because I have always scheduled my writing and my writing-related tasks around my menstrual cycle. There's a point where I feel super creative and there's a point where I feel not as creative, but maybe better for doing some other things. And I've always tried to work with that as best I can. Even when I had a day job, I would try to do my best to kind of work the days that I knew I was going to be less creative as much as possible, which is tricky. But now in perimenopause, the hormones all get kind of wacky and scrambled. So that carefully cultivated schedule that I have figured out over the last, decades is now all messed up. And it's really throwing me off. It's the thing that's bothering me more than any other thing is that I no longer know when I'm going to feel super creative and in the zone and when I'm going to feel like I hate everything and everybody and everything I'm writing and I just feel like crap about everything. I just don't know anymore. There's no schedule. So I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and that is when I realized that a lot of women don't plan their creative life around their menstrual cycle and maybe have never even thought about this before. And I'm sure part of that is because we all experience the menstrual cycle differently. Whenever you talk to other women about your menstrual cycle, you quickly realize that everyone has a completely different experience. There are certain things that might be common, like cramps or headaches during PMS or having a certain day that you always know you're going to cry for no reason, but they're not universal. Some people really don't have much trouble with anything during their PMS or the first day of their period. It's just kind of a nuisance. Oh, I gotta make sure I have a pad or a tampon in my purse. And that's about the extent of how much they think about it. And then there's other people that are so completely wrecked that they are in bed throwing up with a migraine for days. So there's a wide spectrum. Our bodies have all kinds of little issues and vagaries that can complicate things. So as I was talking to other people about this and I realized that not everyone plans their life around their menstrual cycle, I started to wonder, is this just me or is this common? I always feel during the most fertile parts of my cycle, my creativity is fertile. I've always felt like my books are my babies. I really have no maternal instinct at all, unless you're a cat. I mean, I definitely have a maternal instinct with cats, and I also love teenagers. I would love to be an aunt to everyone's broody teenager, but I don't like babies at all. I don't know. I feel bad about it. Babies are still people, but they can't carry on a conversation and they're always leaking something. So I've never had a fertility instinct to have a baby or want to be around a baby or anything like that. I feel like my books are my babies, and I've always kind of wondered if maybe there's actually maybe this is part of the human plan. Some of us needed to channel those thoughts in other directions. So I wondered, is this increased creative urge common? Now, I figured that no one had ever studied this before, because if there's one thing that I've learned about perimenopause, it's that no one has ever studied women ever, and no one knows anything about us, and no one cares to help us with anything. But much to my pleasant surprise, I'm going to pull it up now, there have been some studies. There was particularly a Polish study on creativity in the menstrual cycle, and what they found was that there is a correlation between the fertile part of the cycle and increased creativity. Their hypothesis was that this was somewhat related to the desire for birds to ornament themselves in the mating cycle. Creating art was part of the quality of a person. So when you're in your mating phase, you become more artistic to attract your mate. They found that women's creativity increased when primed with a stimulus representing a long-term, high-quality partner, but not when primed with a short-term mate. In addition, there is also evidence that creative people tend to be less likely to marry and have fewer children even when they do marry. As Feist argues, time spent on creative projects may be taken away from mating and child rearing. So apparently that's me. Too busy being creative to think about having kids. And apparently this is a common thing across the board, which does make me feel like I think that it makes sense for a certain subset of the population to not feel a mating urge because a certain amount of the population has to like put everything into coming up with new ideas for the human population. I'm not saying my ideas are so great that they're gonna like be this massive benefit to humanity, but if you think back in like a tribal culture, maybe a certain amount of both men and women were really meant to like just be thinking really hard to figure out like how do we advance society, what's some creative ideas we could have to get out of this. The author cited examples of women competing for men in writing amusing letters, playing the piano, or learning foreign languages. It appears that women use creativity and intelligence as a signal of their suitability as a spouse. Also noted that creative thinking is more important in the natural environment than tests of IQ or academic tests. Thus, during a fertile phase of the ovulatory cycle, women may display their creativity, which is what researchers have actually found, indicating that in ovulation, women are more creative than in other phases of the ovulatory cycle. Even as the reason why ovulation and original ideas are interlinked still remains largely unknown, acknowledging the link between the two might just help people plan their lives better, which is exactly what I have been doing, and that led me to find another article which talked to Nicole Jardim, the creator of Fix Your Period and founder of the Institute for Menstrual Health. She said, creativity isn't meant to be constant for women, it's meant to move. Estrogen tends to support verbal fluency, idea generation, and outward expression, while progesterone shifts us inward. We become more discerning and intuitive. So, if you're not familiar with the chart of the menstrual cycle and the fluctuations of your hormones, let's see if disheveled editing Lydia can find a picture of it to put up here. Boop. Good job, disheveled editing, Lydia. So the menstrual cycle, as you may know to a lesser or greater extent, depending on how much you paid attention to this sort of thing, can basically be broken up into 4 different components. Day 1 is considered to be the first day of your period, which usually lasts around 5 days. After that, you are in the follicular phase. Your estrogen begins to rise during the follicular phase, peaking at ovulation, which is usually around day 14, 2 weeks after your period, after which your estrogen goes way down, like off a damn cliff. Then you're in the luteal phase, the second half, and your estrogen begins to climb again a little bit, but your progesterone now begins to climb more. And in the middle of the luteal phase, your progesterone is up here, your estrogen is down here, and then they both begin to go down as you're getting ready to have a period again. So I have never needed a chart to tell me this because I have been able to feel it down to my bones, down to the core of my soul. I could always tell you exactly where in my menstrual cycle I was based on what I wanted to do with my life, because I've always found that when I first get my period, I start to feel creative. Right before my period, I always feel like absolute crap. But as soon as I get my period, I start to feel creative. However, I usually don't feel that great because I just got my period. But as soon as I'm past the first couple days of my period, I'm like, okay, it's time to start creating. And that creative momentum just builds and builds and builds because my estrogen is going up. And right around the time of ovulation, I am like in the zone. I am lost. If you bother me, I will bite your head off. This is why I feel like I was not meant to have children, because like this is the time when I'm supposed to be like wanting to create a baby, but instead I'm like, leave me alone because I'm writing a book, damn it. After ovulation, I usually feel absolutely terrible. This is like a weepy, leave me alone day for a day or two right after ovulation. And then in the middle of the luteal cycle, this is when I want a few different things. I want to maybe clean my house. I want to maybe organize stuff. This is a time that's good for like marketing, answering emails, editing, all the stuff that's not actually raw creation, but is more about like kind of tidying up and sorting and organizing. And also this is a time when I like to socialize, which is actually not really what it says for the luteal cycle. it's supposed to be a time that's a little more inward. But for me, I guess because like I'm so in the zone during the estrogen follicular phase that I just want to create. I want to be with my characters. When I get to the luteal phase, I'm actually happy to see some friends again and get out of the house. And then my mood starts to crash again before the period. So this is a little different from what Nicole Jardim described in the article, because she says that yes, ideas flow during the follicular phase, but then ovulation is time for communication and sharing your work. And that is where I diverge a bit, because I'm usually just in the zone at this point and I don't really want to see anybody or talk to anybody. This is a time where if I have a social event that falls on this day, like once our writing club fell on this day, and I was like, I am writing, I cannot attend the writing club. But Dade really still wanted to go, and like we'd said we would go, so I just went and I brought my laptop and I just didn't even really attend the club. I just wrote my book off to the side. I was on a deadline, and that's what I said, like I'm on a deadline. But I just like, my brain was just not ready to deal with being out of the book world. Like if I had sat myself down, I would have been in La La Land. So in that way, I don't really fit with the whole like ovulation part of it. But other than that, this checks. And then she says the luteal phase gets a bad rep, but it's actually very useful for creativity. This phase is excellent for editing, refining, problem solving, and noticing details. Progesterone supports discernment and pattern recognition. That's exactly what I do during this part. But of course, some women probably don't feel this simply because every woman is different with how they experience the menstrual cycle. But part of the reason that a lot of people probably don't notice this is that the world we live in is not really based around our menstrual cycles. It's not really suited for that. When you go into work, you can't tell your boss, like, well, I've entered the follicular phase, so I need you to give me work that is more creative right now, and then I'll do the bookkeeping in 2 weeks when I enter the luteal phase. You know, you can't show up and decide what kind of work you're going to do. Even as a self-employed person, while I can try my absolute best to try to block my work into like creative and then editing, marketing, etc., the chips don't always fall that way. So it can be hard to work around just based on schedules and the cycles of life. But I do feel like it's important information just to be aware of. Like if you're really struggling with something and you're like, oh, this was so easy for me last week, why is this so hard this week? Well, that might be part of it. And I find comfort even just in knowing that the hormones my body is giving me right now are not really conducive to what I'm doing. And even though I might have to do it anyway, at least it explains why it's hard. It's not because I'm just like stupid. It's because I'm just in the wrong week for this kind of work. Sometimes just knowing that helps me get through it. Or maybe there's little things I can tweak to kind of support different kinds of work at different times. Like even when I worked in retail, I was the inventory specialist at a health food store when I had a retail job for some years. And inventory was very luteal. Very much like I'd be going through the shelves and I'd be like looking for expired stuff, and I'd be like scan different SKUs that we were always running out of, and then go in the system and see like what was like the reorder point, which was like, okay, you order apple cider vinegar, you order a case of 12 when you're down to 6 on the shelf. But if we were always selling out of apple cider vinegar, I would have to up the reorder point to like, well, when we're down to 12 bottles, we need to order another case. Stuff like that. That's very like organizational. So I tended to try to do more of that kind of work in that part. And then I try to just do like cashiering in the creative phase. The store was often slow and I could just daydream about stories. And then as soon as I got home, I'd be ready to put the words out. And of course I wasn't always able to decide what kind of work I was going to do on any given day, but at least knowing gave me like, if an option was presented to me, at least I knew like, okay, I know this is what I should be doing today. And then I got to perimenopause, and it's now kind of the hot thing to talk about on the internet, which I'm glad of because it hit me out of nowhere. I did not expect it. I was not prepared for it. I thought that my 40s were going to be like my best creative decade. I kept hearing people talk about how great your 40s are. And then I hit my 40s, and instead I got faced with this totally chaos hormonal cycle that has thrown off my scheduling, along with causing various weird health problems that are clearly hormonal, because sometimes they'll be like really extreme, like, why do I feel so crappy? And then like 2 days later, they're completely gone. And the next week I am like on cloud 9. I feel amazing. My brain is like working on all cylinders. And then 2 days later, I'm just crashing out. Can't put two thoughts together. My digestive system is haywire. I have a random headache. Like it's just complete chaos. I did not expect that at all. Like many women in my generation, I absolutely thought that you get your periods, and then when you're in your 50s, you hit menopause, your periods just kind of come to a halt, you get hot flashes. That's it. But that has not been my experience at all. Because I am always so sensitive to exactly how much estrogen and progesterone my body is producing based on what kind of like work I feel drawn to do or what kind of emotions I'm experiencing, I am hyper aware of those things being shaken up and how they are off base. And I was trying to tell like my primary doctor about this. Like, no, I know this is hormonal because I am acutely aware of my hormones. And they were like, I have never met a woman who talks about her menstrual cycle like this. So I just thought I would share this information. Maybe it will help some of you to plan your lives a little better, or to understand your creativity and its cycles or your moods a little better. And I'd love to know, have you noticed this? If you're one of my fellow perimenopause sufferers, can give me a fist bump. I hope all of your creative cycles go well. And if you're new here, my name is Leah Foxglove. And on this channel, I talk about the creative life in general and the writing life in particular. I have been a full-time creative since 2009. And if you'd like more from me, I put out 2 bonus videos per month voted on by you guys, which can be accessed through my YouTube membership, Substack, or Patreon. If you sign up for free to Patreon or Substack, you also get my periodic newsletters. I've been trying to do them every week, and so far we're 3 weeks. 3 weeks have gone well. Let's see how long we can keep that up. If you'd like to read any of my books, my Hidden Lands books are the books of my heart that I always recommend first, but I have quite a few. You can check those out in my bio. I post every Sunday and sometimes also on Wednesdays, and I thank you so much for watching and being here. Talk to you soon. Bye.